I don't need luck. I'll be with Dumbledore.
I'm not worried, Harry. I'm with you.
Welcome back to the Harry Potter Reviews, guys. Today we are talking about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Half-Blood Prince follows Harry as the wizarding world is now preparing for war against Voldemort, and he's terrorizing everybody, and they actually believe that he's out there now. They actually accept it. But while they're preparing for war, Dumbledore is giving Harry specific lessons to learn about Voldemort's past with different memories in the Pensieve. Draco Malfoy is also up to something in the Room of Requirement, and Harry's trying to figure out what it is. Oh, and love is in the air. P.S. I know this may not look like a Half-Blood Prince t-shirt, because I've had a t-shirt for basically all the other ones, but I swear to God, it actually is. Look. Half-Blood Prince. Ha! Half-Blood Prince was directed yet again by David Yates and scored by Nicholas Hooper. Basically has the same crew with a couple extra cast members in it. So I'm just going to dive right into my thoughts because my biggest pro and con are the same thing. And that is the look and tone of the film. Now on the pros side, this is like one of the most gorgeous movies I have ever seen. It's just, the cinematography is beautiful. It's definitely the best looking of all of the Harry Potter movies, except for maybe Prisoner of Azkaban. I mean, this movie is just beautifully haunting. David Yates said that they really wanted to kind of reflect that whole Rembrandt chiaroscuro, I think I butchered that word, but chiaroscuro type of thing with shadows and light. And you can see that throughout the entire movie. It is just filled with this whole like creeping darkness in the frame and like really bright lights on like one part of the face, but then, you know, like shadow the rest of the time. It just even when it's not shadows, it's just really like very thick. My brother says that it looks like there's something on the lens for the entire movie. I can see where he's coming from, but I love it. It's just the color, the look of it is just so cool. And a lot of these shots I've noticed really resemble like shots that you see on Pottermore. Obviously Pottermore came way after this, but it's just really cool that you can see Pottermore took like a lot of shots from this movie, whether it was like the color or the aesthetic of it or how it was set up or whatever it might have been. For example, you have the shot where Dumbledore is giving his speech in the Great Hall, and you see outside the Great Hall, you have two R's patrolling and keeping guard, and it's like there's silhouettes and there's like the candles in the Great Hall. You have like the stair shot when Ginny's looking up in the burrow, and you have like Miss Weasley come, you know, like on one flight of stairs, and then like on another landing Ron comes, and then on another one Hermione comes, and that was like really good shot. I loved that. Whenever I watch this with friends, I start to get really excited over the cinematography, and they're like, do you need a minute alone with the cinematography? With the images on the screen there? While it is a gorgeous movie, the way that they took the look and the feel of the movie, for me, was completely wrong for this book and for the series. And I'll tell you why. Order of the Phoenix and Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, they have a very dark feel to them. This one has a very melancholy feel to it. It just feels sad all the time. And it just does not work for me. Because the Harry Potter series, while it gets very dark and very adult at times, it's never felt like depressing, you know? And the movie itself, the entire time, just looks depressed. And that's not why I watch Harry Potter. I watch Harry Potter to not be depressed. The problem is the look just clashes with the entire series because it's just drenched in like gloom and angst. And it's funny that it's so lighthearted because a lot of it actually feels like almost a horror movie. You know, like at the cave and the Inferi and everything, and like in the middle when Bellatrix and Fenrir Greyback, they're attacking the burrow. It's actually the first one in three movies that's been PG, which is a really interesting decision. Not even just the look, but the score too, because there's a lot of very fun scores. Nicholas Hooper does it again where he has a lot of really fun ones and really intriguing ones. But a lot of them are very heavy, and they're very, like, it just makes me feel like very heavily emotional, but like not in a good way. At the end, you have like choir music, like this like whole church choir like chanting, and it is very ominous, but it's also just again very depressing feeling. And not only does that contrast with the series, it also simultaneously contrasts with the movie itself, because while the look and tone of it are one thing, the actual content is a complete other thing. This is actually the funniest of the Harry Potter movies. Like, it is consistently very funny, and I love that. Like, you have everything from Harry with the Felix Felicis and him, just being happy the entire time, which was really funny. You have Ron and Lavender and basically everything with relationships and people going back and forth, even down to the scene where Ron and Harry are just lying in bed talking, and it just gets so awkward. Like it's a lot of awkward humor in this one, but it really works for the subplots of all like the relationships and like people starting to like each other and everything. That was really great. But while it is like the funniest movie, it doesn't look like it should be. It just gives me such a weird contrast of like I don't know what to feel with this movie, because I feel like I should be depressed, but then I'm like, well, I'm laughing a lot. And I don't know, that just might be like Gen Z humor, whatever. It just really feels like they didn't know exactly what to do. If they wanted to take it darker, if they wanted it to be funnier, it just feels like it really conflicts. And all those funny moments couldn't have been in there if they didn't give the time for them, which is one thing I really like about this movie, and I really noticed upon watching it again, is that they actually did what I wanted them to do for the last two movies. Take the plot, but also put in some other moments that are just character moments and just little small things of just hanging out in the common room or hanging out in the Three Broomsticks and Hogsmeade. It was things like that while yes, they did contribute to the plot and they were there for a reason, it also felt like they were able to weave in a lot of good character moments that are just us feeling like we're in this wizarding world. The only problem with that, and I'm gonna be a hypocrite because I wanted all those moments, the only problem with that is yes, they still do cut out a fair bit. Now, they actually put in most of it, which I was very happy about, and there were a lot of things that they did cut out. It's like, okay, that's fine. But the main plot of the movie is Dumbledore showing Harry all of these memories of Tom Riddle and how they can use those things and all the information in those memories to figure out his motives and how to destroy him. There are 5 or 6 memories, I think, that we see in the book. In the movie, we see 2 of them. Now, granted, we see the second one twice, but we see 2 of them. I know you can't probably show all of them, but I'm really surprised at them that they cut out so many of them. I mean, honestly, the ones that they picked were, yes, probably the 2 most important ones, obviously, because they had to convey that information in the movie, but there were still other things in the other memories that I feel like were very important as well to just Voldemort's character. Even if they had done like a montage, like one of those scenes where it's just like you kind of are just floating through, like if we just had like a really cool montage of just like floating through the wisps, of all the memories in the Pensieve and all that smoke, but seeing very quickly, or just snippets of the other memories like Hepzibah with Hoki or Morphin or just any of the other Gaunts, I feel like that would have at least given us a little bit of something else, and we just highlighted on each of the Horcruxes, like we saw the locket and then we saw the Hufflepuff's cup. I think it would have given a little bit more well-roundedness to that plot. The other thing that they cut out, and I just don't get this one at all, is the end battle, because that's really important. And here's why I have a very big problem with it. If you've read the book, you understand all the questions I'm about to ask. If you've just seen the movie, here's the questions you're going to be asking yourself. After they kill Dumbledore, where are they going? Like, yeah, you get that there's a border there because they show it multiple times in the movie that they're putting up a protection shield, but it's not really explicitly clear that they're trying to get out of that so they can apparate, because we never actually see them leave and then apparate. Okay, so where are they going? Why don't they take Harry with them? Yes, Snape says no, he belongs to the Dark Lord, but that's not an answer. Why don't they kill anybody else? They just come here to kill Dumbledore and then leave the castle? You've been trying for months and years to get into this castle, And now you finally have. And yeah, you took a huge chess piece off the board, but why don't you just keep going? They had to, in the book, fight the Death Eaters out. So now it just feels like they're like, okay, we're done for the day. Let's go home at 5 p.m. It just felt so odd. It doesn't make sense. Their motives don't make sense because it's not explained, because there's no battle to push them away. That is my rant on the end of Half-Blood Prince. Now, there is one thing that they actually added that wasn't in the book. So you can see the frustration there. That thing that they added was an entire sort of wand battle in the middle, when you didn't put the one in at the end. Oh, sorry, I was just trying to look for where that was necessary, but can't find it. Now, in all seriousness, I will grant them this. In the middle of the book, there is really no midpoint. They go home for Christmas, and there's not really like a very interesting thing that happens. It's more about Rufus Scrimgeour, the new minister, who we don't actually see in the movie, talking to Harry about like being the poster child for the war. And I can get, as a screenwriter, people coming to see a Harry Potter movie are going to want more action. I understand that. I also understand that if you're not going to put the ministry thing in there, which is a little bit more of a bland subtopic, you do want to hype up and really emphasize those villains, because we really don't see them till the end in the book. So I do appreciate that they put them in the middle, so you get to see more of Bellatrix and more of Fenrir Greyback, because we don't really know who he is until the end. It just really sucks that they did that and then took out other things that were like major things, like the battle at the end. That being said, once again, the ending, while frustrating, is awesome. You know, the whole, like, there's 3 different parts: the cave scene, then the actual killing of Dumbledore, and then the battle sort of between Harry and Snape. And they were for what they were very cool. Again, very well shot. The whole scene with the cave is beautiful. I mean, you got the ocean, and then you have like Dumbledore, you know, with his firestorm. It was just all very, very cool, very suspenseful, and it's one of my favorite endings, because while Ron and Hermione haven't been with Harry on all of his like the ends of each of the books, their not being with him in this one really sat with me for some reason. Like, it's just Harry and Dumbledore. And that was so cool. It just felt so mature. It felt like we're really getting into like something bigger and dark that Harry has to be a part of, that he's going on this secluded mission with Dumbledore. And it's one of those that when I was watching it in the movie, like the movie theater, the first time I saw it, it's one of those that once he goes to Slughorn with the Felix Felicis to get the memory, from that point on, it just felt like, you know, something is coming, something is ramping up, and it was just very suspenseful and very beautiful, very cool to watch. So let's talk about Dumbledore a little bit and some of the other characters. If you saw my Goblet of Fire review, you know that I talked about Dumbledore a little bit in terms of his character and why it was taken very poorly in Goblet of Fire. I want to talk a little bit more about it just because I actually think that if I had to pick one movie where I thought, this is Dumbledore from the book, it's Half-Blood Prince. That is one thing they did very well, was that they made a very accurate portrayal of Dumbledore from the book. Now, yes, I would say Sorcerer's Stone is probably very close, but for me, if I had to pick one over the other, Richard Harris felt too old. And I know Dumbledore's old.
150? Give or take a few years?
But the one thing about Dumbledore is that no matter how old he is, he acts young. He has like a lightheartedness. He's like a child at heart. Now, obviously, he has that complex of like, he is dealing with an entire war. He is like one of the greatest wizards of all time. He has a lot of shit that he's dealing with, personally and in the wizarding world. But when it's just like a regular day, he acts kind of, you know, like a little kid sometimes. And he's very whimsical, and he's got like this very magical, obviously, look on the world. So I really liked that aspect of him in this, because he is very lighthearted, very paternal, especially towards Harry, and very funny. Like, he really gets into like the kids' like gossip. It's really cool. While simultaneously then dealing with all this heavy stuff about Voldemort, and at the end, I think my favorite thing about the end is that you know that Dumbledore knows this is it. You know, he knows that, and he's prepared for it. He just acts like a father to Harry, like a protective force, and just goes with it. And just that moment when Snape's about to kill Dumbledore, Dumbledore looks down at Harry, and he just knows. And no matter how you feel about the Dumbledore and Harry dynamic, that has to hurt. That has to break your heart. They gave that spell, like the sound effects, such weight and such like literally like a knife stabbing him. Speaking of Snape, let's talk about him a little bit. Alan Rickman is just the GOAT. Man, he's so good. He once again plays Snape with that like mystery, you know? And I think by this point, J.K. Rowling had told him the end with Snape. And he just played it with such vagueness, but he was still hilarious, still sassy, still mean and rude to the kids. But when he kills Dumbledore, he had to play it so carefully. And his face and the lines he gives are so misleading on whether or not he's a good guy, a bad guy, until the end actually happens. He really, really nailed Snape. He really portrayed the character of Snape very well in this one. Probably, honestly, some of the best up through the series as Snape gets more complex. For other characters who get more complex, Draco Malfoy. Up to this point, he's just been a dick and a bully. And now he's like an adult. Like at this point, the fandom knows that, like, you know, Draco is not a bad person. Yes, he was a bully. He was a very big bully and kind of awful as a kid, but he was like raised that way. And then you see it in this one that he's been given this mission to literally murder somebody. He's 16 years old. He played it very well with that whole moroseness the entire time. He was very sullen the whole movie because, you know, he's scared. And that was cool that in the movie we actually get to see more of him fixing the vanishing cabinets, which we don't get to see in the book. So it was cool being able to see that, and he could actually have more emotion with that when we see when he's by himself and he's freaking out because it's not working. Tom Felton played Draco in this one very well. No matter how you feel about Draco as the bully, no kid deserves to be put in that position. I mean, God. On a lighter note, we have Horace Slughorn. Rereading the book, I didn't realize Slughorn is not as goofy and not as bumbling. They really took that a couple steps farther with Slughorn in this one. I really do like how they gave him like a graduation cap. You know, it really set that tone of like this character is somebody who's very nostalgic, very about his prestige and what he can do for people and his connections and all. So that was really cool, you know, because he is very smart and very reflective. But he in this one, they just, I don't know, they made him really weird and like and bumbling. That being said, he is very, very funny. And Jim Broadbent plays him very well. Yeah, I have to talk about, obviously, the trio. Normally, I don't really talk about Harry because we kind of know about Harry and what's been going on in you know, his character. But Daniel Radcliffe had a hard time around this time when they were making Half-Blood Prince. From what I have read, he had a problem with alcohol. And it is extremely clear in this movie. Every single shot, he is just looking somewhere else. He is in a daze. I don't know how, I don't know, you know, like what he was like on set or off set or whatever. But he just had a lot of struggles with that. I mean, you know, young fame, it happens. But it is very, very clear. His emotions do not come through. He looks like he's somewhere else the entire movie. Felix Felicis part, and some other little emotions were fine. But the Felix Felicis part was great. Now, if he's drunk on sad, like, it kind of makes sense. But most of the movie that he has to be very, you know, sullen and everything, like, he is, but it also just looks like he is, like, not there. He's, like, in a 1,000-yard stare. You know, he just has that look where he's, like, zoning out. So Harry in this one doesn't feel as fleshed out, as, like, realistic human in this one, just because there wasn't as much emotion really in it for a lot of it. And as for Ron and Hermione, yeah, I mean, I think they were really good in this one. David Yates really did a good job with them, and Steve Kloves, the screenwriter, because they gave Ron and Hermione a lot to do. Ron was very there for Harry and funny, so they did a really good balance this time with him. They obviously have the dynamic of like their relationship and them liking each other, and Ron and Lavender and Hermione and Cormac, and they did a really good job with all that. Like just the whole relationship thing in general was very funny, and but also very emotional. So yeah, overall, Half-Blood Prince is an anomaly for me because it's like two contrasting things in the same movie. There's a lot of contrast because shadows. But again, dark does not equal depressing. Very mature does not have to be sad. And there was just something in that I'm like, this doesn't feel like Harry Potter as much. There's a lot of scenes that still feel like the like Fred and George's Joke Shop. That was very fun. But yeah, I really love the characters in this one. I really love the plot. It's like my second favorite book. They just had some weird conflicts with how to tell it and portray it. So for accuracy to the source material, it's very hard because the characters were really well done. They put in a lot of most of the book, but the stuff that they did take out was very, very important. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because I very much enjoyed that they were able to give us more of the wizarding world overall. They gave a lot of good character moments, which I think beats out plot a little bit, just a little bit. So I'm going to give them a 3 out of 4. As for the tone, yeah, this one definitely tonally is the worst. And it's weird to say. Like, when I'm talking about Harry Potter, I really should just say, like, least best, because overall they're still my favorites. It was just kind of, at least for me, a little bit of a mess, even if it was a beautiful looking mess. And since it's so much of a contrast, and it could be one or the other, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 4. Now, as for the cinematic quality, that's a 5 billion out of 4. No, I can't do that, but it's a 4 out of 4, obviously. Overall, even though it actually would equal out to like a 3, I'm actually going to give it a 2.5 out of 4 because I don't feel it's up to the level of even Order of the Phoenix or Goblet of Fire, just because of that offness about it. And I gave those a 3 out of 4, so this one, I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 4. So those are all of my extensive and very ranty thoughts about Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. We're come out to the end. This is weird. And yeah, I didn't make it to September 1st. I wanted to give you guys like good quality videos, and I really wanted to get all my thoughts out there. As you have seen, I have a shit ton of thoughts on each movie. I didn't even know I had as many thoughts as I did, and that's coming from me, who's watched all of the movies a billion times. But we're coming down to the end. We're going to be doing Deathly Hallows Part 1 next time, and get ready to cry a little bit. A lot of it. And on that depressing note, which is very fitting for the review, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and Harry Potter right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.